I will never be a memory.
And what's going on, Read My Lips people? We are back. Back like we ain't never left, baby. You know how we do. So, this time around, I wanted to talk about something that I mentioned in a couple other videos. But it's time to bring it back up again, and that's UBI favorability. It's gone up exponentially, right? With all the talk that's been going on about people getting a check, and people being in favor of, the government sending them funds, the talk of UBI has come around again. So I actually have some clips from both Secular Talk and from The Hill Rising. We're going to listen to both those clips and delve into it a bit more. But first, I'm going to give you some facts, some stats. Don't you guys love that? Like Nerds for Yang, he loves putting out the numbers, right? Americans are split on universal basic income, and I'm telling you, you're not going to be surprised by who's in favor of it and who's not. I'll give you a hint as to who's not in favor of universal basic income. Take a guess what age range is not in favor of it. So as of now, at least 43% support a universal basic income. That will leave 57% being against it. And that's a basic income of $1,000 a month. Now, you got to understand, 43% is a lot. Compared to where UBI was before Yang entered the race, nobody was thinking about it. Almost everybody was opposed to it overwhelmingly, right? But you got to understand, he shifted the Overton window, and now people are kind of being on board, right? And the numbers are going to increase as this pandemic continues. The numbers are going to continue to go up, right? So 55% of voters between the ages of 18 and 34 support universal basic income, as did 53% of respondents between 35 and 49. Voters older than 65 were overwhelmingly against the proposal, with only 21% supporting it. Now look, hold on. Let's pause for a second. So people 65 and over who are probably getting Social Security, they're probably getting benefits of some sort, are against a universal basic income. Isn't that strange that the older the person, the more they're against a universal basic income, the more they're against a cash cushion? I find that incredibly interesting. And so what these figures actually show on the ground is that young people are very excited about a new economy that puts people first. And this is what Yang's been talking about. So, he goes on to say, anyone under the age of 40 to 45 has lived through a pretty horrible economy, where starting salaries are not what they used to be. You've got student debt problems. Housing is out of reach in a lot of places. Wage increases have been minimal. I always say wages have been stagnant. So your entire professional life has been in an economy that hasn't helped you make it. There was a strong partisan difference also between the parties. So majority of Democrats, 54%, were in favor of a UBI, with only 27% of Republicans supporting it. And 44% of independents were for it. So look, what these numbers show is that the Yang has put in the work, right? And it's only going to build from there. And with the clips I'm about to show you, you're going to find out that through a pandemic, it took a pandemic, more people on board with a universal basic income. Well, look at that. Ain't that about a bitch? So I'm going to play these clips for you, and then we're going to come back.
Americans are now overwhelmingly in favor of left-wing ideas that they formerly were not in favor of. Actually, some of them they weren't in favor of, other ones they were in favor of. But specifically, let's look at the issue of UBI. So on March 2nd, UBI was supported by just 33% of Americans, and it was opposed by 48%. So it was significantly underwater. Significantly. Only 33% supported. March 17th, after this crisis had really taken hold and people are getting laid off left and right, and we got quite a disaster on our hands, look at that. Support 58%, oppose 26%. So now UBI is overwhelmingly popular. Now, you could argue that maybe the American people will only say in a time of crisis, UBI should be done. But my response to that is, okay, then we should definitely do it at least in a crisis. I personally would support, what is effectively a Social Security for all check. I would support that beyond just the confines of a crisis. But, now it's obvious that it's necessary, and people have flipped, and now they're totally in favor of it. Now, the next one is interesting. Do you support or oppose the idea of the government taking action to make COVID-19 treatments free? Among all voters, or all Americans, I should say, 68% support, only 17% oppose. And then even among conservative respondents, 55% support, only 27% oppose. So think about those numbers, because I think that's so telling. When we get hit upside the head with a national crisis, people have been saying this on Twitter, but everybody appears to be a democratic socialist in a crisis. It's never like people going, the government should really stay out of this and we'll take care of it. Everybody's reaction, no matter where they are on the political spectrum, is like, we got to do something, man. The government's got to step in. This has to be a top-down effort. We can't just, ragtag on a local level or whatever, try to piece together a thing because it doesn't make sense. It won't work. So everybody's like, the government has to do something. The fact that this outbreak has made it so that only 27% of Republicans oppose having free treatment.
Well, one of the interesting developments from this crisis is that it's changing a lot of public attitudes towards the way that the government spends money. And one of those is on UBI. So Andrew Yang, whenever he was beginning his campaign, I think UBI was one of the least popular proposals. By the time he left, it had gone, I don't remember the numbers exactly, it was 10, 12 points. Still a lot. Basically injected it into the national conversation. And now, Crystal, new numbers show that it's even higher. What does it say?
So this is Data for Progress tested the idea of a one-time $1,000 cash payment to American workers. So they tested on March 2nd, and it only had 33% support. Now, 58% support. So suddenly, in a moment, this idea, which before Andrew Yang entered the presidential campaign was truly fringe. Few people had even heard of it or thought about it. It was sort of an intellectual conversation that was going on. He mainstreams the idea through his presidential campaign. You see an uptick in support, especially among Democratic primary voters. Still not a majority position, though. And now, in an instant, this crisis flips it from, and in weeks, right, literally days, from being a majority opposed position to now a majority position.
We should note, too, a one-time payment is not UBI.
It's different.
But this is what I think Scott Stanton's has been talking a lot about. He goes, look, this normalizes the idea. This is another step forward to it. Now, look, I was never really a big supporter of UBI. But I think in terms of relief payments at this time, of course. And Americans, what it seems to me is like, I see why the UBI people are excited. But why I look at it is it legitimizes the idea that government is there for its vulnerable, that we're all in this together at a certain point, and that we can and should take action at this time.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
And I don't think either one of us or really anyone is saying that this is all that needs to be done. But you see some of the benefits of UBI. First of all, I am a big proponent of universal programs because they can't be demonized. It is that everyone's in it together. We all get this. Everybody gets this floor. Everybody gets this payment. So there's no like, oh, this is for other people. Oh, it's for those lazy people. Oh, it's for those unworthy people. No. Everyone gets it. Everybody's bought in. So that's number one. Number two, you see the perniciousness in this moment where things need to be turned around so quickly of means testing, because it takes so much bureaucracy. You have to go, you have to justify your poverty to the federal government and plead for it. You have to wade through the paperwork to do that. You have to wait for the slow turning gears of government to turn and decide that you are in fact impoverished enough and worthy enough and whatever in order to justify this check. And so at a time when you need an injection as quickly as possible, this is obviously the best possible way to get cash in people's hands.
Okay, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, look, for the people opposed to it, for anyone watching that might be against a UBI, that might be against a universal basic income, I need you to tell me why. Is it because you feel like it's socialism? You feel like it's a handout and we need to tie ourselves up by our bootstraps? Is it just the method? Because there's different ways to implement a UBI. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a value-added tax, that Yang's proposing. There's many different ways to implement a UBI. So for the people that are against it, let me know why. Also, if you're against the UBI, should you be taking these government checks? If they decided to pay us every month while we were having this catastrophe, should you be taking those checks? Because essentially, that would be a version of UBI. It'd be a temporary UBI, right? So if you've been against universal basic income, I don't know. Isn't it kind of weird to be taking the checks from the government? If you're against social democracy, I don't know. Wouldn't it also be kind of weird to take these checks from the government? I don't know. I feel like it would leave a bad taste in your mouth, right? That's just my personal opinion. But I love that these numbers are shifting and that's becoming a lot more favorable. And it's a shame. It's really a shame that it took a pandemic for people to be more on board with it. But that's how it is. Until people actually have to go through the shit, they tend not to be in favor. Like with a lot of these lawmakers, until something catastrophic happens to them and their family, they're really not on board with, some of these bills and legislations that would actually help people. And they have to go through the shit. I see that very often. So, I don't know, guys. What do you think? What do you think about this shift in numbers for UBI? I think it's dope. I mean, and like the numbers break it down. So peep this. And this shows a lot. It shows a lot about class, too. So with the survey they did, they found that only 37% of suburban voters were in favor of UBI. Now check this. Rural voters, 54% were in favor of UBI. Very interesting. People living in households making less than $75K annually were split on the proposal, with 49% favoring it and 51% opposing it. So that's households making less than $75K. It was split in half pretty much. And Italy's going through some shit right now, but I believe Italy also has a sort of basic income kind of program called like citizen income or something like that. I don't know how much they give out. I got to look at the numbers to see how much they give out. But they've kind of done that. I think Mark Zuckerberg has come out in favor of UBI, or at least a basic income kind of thing. So, look, it's just really weird to me when people are opposed to other people getting a cushion of some sort. If you don't want the money, then say you don't want the money and don't take it. But it's really weird that you don't want other people to get that money. Like, I just find that really weird. Like, if you don't need it and you're well off without that 1K and you can function without it, great. But like, why not be in favor of other people getting it that might need it? I don't know. It's really weird. It's really weird. So just to note, these numbers were pre the pandemic. They were 2019-ish, right? These numbers were pre the pandemic that I quoted to you. So I just want you to take a look at what the numbers were before the pandemic and look at the numbers now after the pandemic that Cigar and Kyle Kalinske just quoted to you. Look at how big of a difference there was, right? So that's pretty insane. That's pretty insane. So yeah, and I have a feeling as time passes, as this year goes on, the numbers are going to shift more and more in favor of UBI. Remember, the numbers I quoted you were from last year, and the videos that you watched were from this year, post-pandemic, or midst pandemic, and big difference, man. Even like in the numbers I quoted you, Republicans weren't for it at all. Now Republicans are all over it. They like it. Everybody likes it. So again, if you're against a UBI, you got some explaining to do. So yeah, besides that, I don't think from what I've seen, they still haven't come to an agreement on this cash payout yet. At the time I'm working on this, they haven't come to an agreement, which is insanity. And I saw a smear that like Pelosi was trying to put something to do with Planned Parenthood in it, like for the government to fund killing babies and stuff like that. Total smear. It's amazing that people can play politics right now while we're going through this. It's amazing to me. I also read something like, companies were suing other companies because they found a way to like duplicate, an essential piece that you need for the masks. And so the company that found out they were duplicating it told them to cease and desist, or they're going to sue them. But they needed to duplicate this part so they can help more people for the ventilators and the masks and stuff. It's really weird that a company can be like, hey, stop saving those people's lives over there. At the end of the day, it's about the bottom dollar for these companies. Democratic socialism, or it's corporate socialism. Like, corporate socialism is a thing. That's a thing. A lot of people don't get that. Like, not everybody's for democratic socialism, fine. But corporate socialism is a thing. It's ugly. Stop duplicating that device that's going to save people's lives. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to report on that. UBI skyrocketing. People are digging it. Last year versus this year. Pretty damn amazing, right? So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please like, comment, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Just hip thrust that like button. If you don't, let me know in the comment section why. I'm always down to talk about it. I have a Cash App, a PayPal, and a Venmo link in the description below. Please feel free to donate to the channel now more than ever. Hopefully I'll be talking to you guys soon. Have a good one. Peace.